All right, Shalom. First off, I give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasam, Yahweh Shah, Bahasam, Kakudas. Want to give double honors to the apostles and the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, and a sincere Shalom to the Akim out here that's doing again, pushing this work and truth and in sincerity. Okay? Want to go on this video, okay, about the elect will be targeted, watched, isolated, slandered, and pressured. Okay. I asked ChatGPT, will the men of the Lord have to go through things like Will Smith did in the movie Enemy of the State? And it says not in the same form, but often in the same spirit. Okay. It says in Enemy of the State, Will Smith's character, which is a movie, okay, it says is targeted, watched, isolated, slandered, and pressured. And it says because he unknowingly holds truth that threatens powerful interests. Right? Now, on the other end is we knowingly hold the truth. Okay? Lord willing, we are a part of the elect. Okay? But we hold the truth, we know the truth, okay? And for that purpose, we're considered the T word, okay? We're at the on the list of those people that they're watching, okay? Especially out here in Baltimore, our group, Great Millstone, Baltimore, we're like number 102 in Baltimore. You got all of these people out here that are, murdering and doing all type of criminal activities. But somehow, some way, we managed to be up on that list. Okay. And, that's how it goes. We expect those. You should expect those things. You shouldn't be surprised at, nothing that comes along with this faith. Okay. This is part of what we sign up for. Okay. It says, that storyline actually mirrors a biblical pattern, even if the modern tactics look different. And it says, biblical pattern, God's men versus hostile systems. Throughout Scripture, men chosen by God constantly face pressure from authority, society, and hidden powers when they stand for truth. Examples: Joseph, falsely accused, imprisoned; Moses, hunted by Pharaoh, resisted by his own people; David, tracked and hunted by Saul; Elijah, targeted by Jezebel, forced into hiding; Jeremiah, imprisoned, labeled a traitor; Yahweh Shah, surveilled, falsely accused, executed by the state. Apostles, they were arrested, beaten, monitored, killed. It says, 2 Timothy 3:12, it says, yeah, and all that will live godly in Yahweh Shah shall suffer persecution. Okay? So, if you are of the elect, okay, you a part of this faith, you're going to suffer persecution. If you want to be a part of Yahweh Shah, okay? If you don't want to, partake in that, then you're not of Yahweh Shah. Okay? So you wouldn't be considered his. Okay? One of the things that we're doing is we're laying down our life, for the Lord. That's an act of love and friendship. He laid down his life for us, so in return, we're laying down our life, for the brothers, okay, the sisters, okay, for Yahweh Shah, okay? That's a part of proving our life, our love. It says, what enemy of the state represents spiritually, right? It says the movie isn't prophecy, but it illustrates principles, okay? Um, Surveillance, right? The parallel to that would be scrutiny, accusation, watching, right? We're made a spectacle onto, the world, angels, okay? Um, it says, and also, you got, uh, you know, the things that we watch, the videos that we do, you know, it's put out there, to where it, the world sees what we do, we don't know who tracks us, it might not be, singled out for, every last one of us, but I wouldn't be surprised if, there were, you know, um, a lot of people, that's in the truth that, they watching our moves and what we do, you know, especially if you get up the higher up the totem pole you get, but, it says smear campaigns, um, it says false witnesses, uh, reputation attacks, right? And this is one of the things that's going to happen, man. We're going to have people who, will come up and falsely accuse us of doing things. Okay. One of the things, you got agents. Okay. We, we always get, people who come up and they make the distinction between us and other Hebrew Israelite camps. Like we just had a woman who popped up. She could be she looked like an Edomite, so-called white woman, right? But she could be a Jake, and she was agreeing with us. She was saying, he was never, the Lord was never a white man, okay? He was never white. He was always a black man, She always, she would agree with that, and when we was bringing out the stuff, she was resonating with it, she added on to certain things, and she, spiritually said, y'all guys are different from Wi-Fi or, WFI, whatever the heck their name is, the Watchman for Israel. Y'all guys are different from them, right? And that shows to me that someone who has that eye to be able to see that, yeah, you might have different Israelite groups, but everybody ain't the same. You're not going to just treat everybody the same, and she saw the spirit that we was coming in was totally different from those guys, but the thing is, she's talking about that they, was calling her an Edomite, and, here come Cruella DeVille, and, saying all type of, crazy stuff to people. You don't know who's of the elect or not, and then they out here fighting people and doing all these things. So when somebody does come up and they not able to make the distinction between, us and, these other groups, they'll put all of us together and they'll lump all of us together. That's what devils do. But the good thing is that you got some people out here who are, the Lord put the spirit on them to see that, hey, no, those guys aren't, those guys. They're different. Every Israelite ain't a BHI, as you would call it, a black Hebrew Israelite. Okay? So a lot of these other groups out here, the Lord set his people, his men, his doctrine separate from those other people. Okay? So it's not just a thing of, because somebody's out there and they're calling themselves a Hebrew Israelite, that you could just put everybody together. Well, if that's the case, then why we ain't putting all Christians together? When Christians, do all these, heinous acts. Okay? And Christianity has done a lot of, wicked stuff throughout history. Okay? Even to this day. But the people don't group all Christians together. They don't group all Jehovah's Witnesses and all these other groups together. But somehow, some way, Hebrew Israelites get grouped together, It says isolation, being cut off, misunderstood. And that's I touched on that. We'll be misunderstood, during these times. Okay? Saying we believe in this and, the same thing that they did with Yahweh Shah. It says pressure to submit, compromise truth for safety. It's going to boil down to that MOTB, the mark of the beast, which these other groups teach differently. And that's going to make us even more dangerous than them and the government side, the people who, because we go against the society in that regard. We teach not to take the, RFID, okay? With that, because that's the mark, okay? Anybody who takes that, then you submit it, And scriptures talk about woe on them to them that go into Egypt for help. It says hidden systems, principalities, and powers. So you got different, people who set up in different positions, man, that you wouldn't even know that these people are tied in or juiced in. They linked in. Okay? It's Ephesians 6:12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Okay? It says important balance. This matters. Not every believer becomes a public target. God protects many quietly. Some are hidden, not hunted. Some serve without dramatic confrontation. Okay? Yahweh Shai himself said, be wise as serpents, harmless as doves. Okay? That's Matthew 10:16. It says, so this is not about paranoia or expecting a spy movie life. Okay? So everybody, ain't going to have that same, dealing with the same consequences. Okay? But we all will have to, suffer some persecution. That's just, the rite of passage in this faith. Okay? It says, what will happen to men of the Lord if a man speaks truth boldly, refuses compromise, exposes injustice, challenges ungodly authority, then yes, he should expect resistance, misrepresentation, pressure, social or institutional pushback. Okay? But God always limits it. It's Isaiah 54:17. No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. Okay? So even if we get caught up in this, right? We that's why we have the Lord there, because the Lord protects us. Okay? At the end of the day, you will get the victory. Okay? Bottom line, it says men of the Lord may not face NSA drones and satellite tracking, but they will face spiritual surveillance, social targeting, systemic resistance, and character attacks. Okay? And just like in the movie, truth makes you a threat, but also places you under God's protection. Okay? And it says biblical prophecy parallels, right? Total observation, nothing hidden system. Every move tracked, cameras, data, phones, satellites. Okay? It says a system where nothing is private, right? It says Revelation 13:16. He causes all, both small and great, to receive a mark, and that no man might bow or sell. Okay? Unless he had that mark, right? And that mark is the RFID. Right here, it says a world where economic access requires compliance. Okay? Which implies identification, right? Radio frequency identification chip, monitoring, right? That comes along with that chip, okay? And enforcement. They're gonna enforce and make everybody, you're gonna be in, you're gonna have to take that, or you're gonna be, ostracized. You're gonna be put out there, okay? Living off the grid, or why aren't you taking this? Depending on what level that you may be on, okay? See, they know that there are people who are going to give a lot of blowback on not taking it, and we are part of that force, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shah, that's not going to take it. Now you got certain other groups that believe that the mark of the beast is RFID, right? You got other people who believe so, right? You got some Edomites who may say, and those people who may be Edomites that say, that's the mark of the beast, right? They may be Jakes, right? But you're gonna have resistance from the opposition too, those who oppose us. Okay. Now you got controlled opposition. Okay, but in this aspect, just like how they, when they brought out the if you don't take the jump shot, you had people who, weren't a part of Great Millstone and believed in the Bible that, just said, I'm not taking that. Okay, so when that MOTB comes, when they try to enforce people to take that, you're gonna have a lot of people, okay, different people that say that they're not gonna take that. Okay, but from the spiritual aspect, one of the things that when they told people to get the jump shot, they were saying, in order for us to be successful, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, y'all got to take it to get return to a sense of normalcy. See, we say that those people, the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, they're the Israelites. Okay, we could look like other nations. Okay, but they're gonna enforce this. Okay, and some people gonna end up dying. Okay, being persecuted, and some people going, having, to live off the grid. You ain't gonna be able to buy or sell anything. Okay, and this is gonna be a systemic system. Okay, not a random. Okay, some people may be targeted, like I said, based on their level. Okay, that they may be on. Whether they in the government or whatever. Okay. It says a truth holder becomes the enemy. Will Smith doesn't, and forget Will Smith. It's not about Will Smith. It's about the movie, right? And the principle behind it. It says he doesn't seek trouble. Truth finds him, and suddenly he's haunted. Okay. It says John 16:2. It says they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yeah, the time comes that whosoever kills you will think that he does God service. Okay? And that's the mindset that people will be in, right? It says truth itself becomes criminalized. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Those who won't align are labeled dangerous, extremists, threats to order. Okay? So people who, they're going to have that mindset that, they're doing the will or act of God, in different ways. Okay? And guess what? That those people who have that mindset, they're going to be targeting the men of the Lord. Okay? Because the Lord loves opposition. Okay? That so he can show that he is God. Okay? So be prepared for, being looked at, is those, those descriptions. Okay? We're going to be looked at as a threat to the order. Okay? restoring things back to order because we're telling people not to take it. Okay? False accusations and smear campaigns. Evidence is planted, reputation destroyed. He's framed because he's judged. Okay? Revelation 12 and 10, the accuser of our brethren, which accused them before our God day and night. And Esau loves to do that, man. Esau loves to be an accuser. Okay? He's a devil. Okay? You ain't find that out. You'll find out the hard way. Okay? You don't never trust your enemy. Okay? Law used as a weapon, right? Everything done legally, right? Warrants, courts, authorization, okay? Daniel 7 and 25, he shall think to change times and laws, right? Revelation 13 and 7, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, okay? So that's what's going to happen, man. They're going to make, change things, okay? And they're going to try to make war with the men of the Lord, okay? Isolation of the righteous. Friends will vanish. Help is dangerous. Trust disappears, right? Some people, they're gonna not want to deal with us, because they already don't want to deal with us on certain levels. But when you got you getting put out there like you're the bad guy, you're gonna see how many people actually love you, how many people actually care about you, who would actually help hide you, who would actually go down, go down to even die for you when things get real. Who would actually do that? You're being targeted, warrants out for you and everything like that. How many of your friends, would do that? How many of would your family do that? Your mom, your job, all that. Would they be willing to, take the charge for you or with you? Do they really trust in your character? You'd be hard pressed to find people like that, man. Okay? Yeah, there are people would turn you in if they could get some money from off of it, or get some heat off of their back. Okay? It says remnant protection. This is key. It says, even under global systems, God preserves a remnant. Okay? Matthew 24 and 22. Except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Okay? Here, Revelation 14 and 12, here's the patience of the saints. Not everyone is exposed. Not everyone is hunted. Not everyone is public. Some are hidden. Some are sealed, preserved. Okay? Enemy of the state, enemy of the beast system equals enemy of the beast system. Okay? Stay loyal, or state loyalty versus God loyalty. Acts 5 and 29. We ought to obey God rather than men. Okay, that's the real line. That's the bottom line. Okay? Because Howard Shah said so. Revelation 12 and 11. Okay, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Okay. So, you believe in Yahweh Shah, he overcame death, he overcame all the he's the author and the finisher of our faith. Okay? Through him, we're able to get the victory. Okay? To win. That's why faith is important. Okay? Because other than that, you don't got a chance of winning without Yahweh Shah. Okay? So with that, Lord willing, this was edified. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shah, Shalom to the elect.